And we're back, like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Thursday morning here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. There are two major names in cinema who celebrate birthdays today, one of whom is Gene Hackman, who turns 95 today. And Gene Hackman is someone I have talked about on the channel frequently, repeatedly, and with good reason. He's been retired more than 2 decades. I wish that he hadn't walked away when he did, but he went the way of Sir Sean Connery instead of his buddy Clint Eastwood, who is 4 months younger than Gene and continues to work, I should say. Clint might be retired. Clint's going to be 95 at the end of May. Gene just turned 95 at the end of January. But there was another major talent, major star, generational ability, who is celebrating his 51st birthday today. And that would be 4-time Oscar nominee, twice for Best Actor, twice for Supporting, and 1-time Supporting Actor Oscar winner, Christian Bale. And it's strange because I have been a Christian Bale fan. He's a guy's a month younger than me, spoiler alert. But I have been a fan of his from the time I saw Empire of the Sun on HBO. I was maybe 14. And I've kind of watched him grow up, watched him become a fitness nut, a fitness addict. You look at how just chiseled he is in American Psycho. I mean, he is dialed in. You look at how ridiculous he looks in Reign of Fire. But then you talk about his incredible physical transformations for various films, which is something that's not advisable for one's long-term health. We all know that. Matt Damon almost gave himself, almost ended up in a hospital the way that he torture dieted for Courage Under Fire. Christian Bale, at least from my knowledge, has tried to follow some kind of protocols for safety, but when you lose as much weight as he did for The Machinist, there's no safe way to do that. But he is a phenomenally talented performer, very versatile. He can be funny. He can be dead serious. He's played a couple of villains here or there. He's always tried to not do what people expect him to. And I really, just as a fan, I appreciate that. There's nothing wrong with going to the well. Excuse me. There's nothing wrong with going to the well every now and then. Brad Pitt in his prime playing a conventional leading man role versus trying something different like movies such as California or Seven. Sometimes it's okay to give the people what they want, but Christian Bale has rarely made those kinds of movies. And just for the record, his Oscar nominations, the win was for The Fighter, a movie about Irish Mickey Ward with Mark Wahlberg playing Ward, and Bale plays his kind of strung out brother. That was a role where he lost weight for. He was nominated for Best Actor for his turn as Dick Cheney in the movie Vice. He put on a ton of weight. The other Best Actor nomination is for American Hustle, movie where he put on a lot of weight. And he has been sort of over time balancing his weight for various films. And really the closest antecedent to him in this regard is Bobby D, Mr. De Niro himself. And there is a story that shows just how much of a chameleon, more so than De Niro, and that's not a criticism, but how much of a chameleon Christian Bale is that he's a very attractive man, we know that. But he has the kind of face where when he puts on weight, when he loses weight, if he changes his hair, his beard, is he gray, is he not gray, it's very difficult to automatically identify him. And the story goes, and there's no reason to dispute this, too many people told the same story, I think it's absolutely true, but it shows what Bale is able to do as far as disappearing physically into a role. Not just, now he looks jacked and now he looks like he's 115 pounds. So the set of American Hustle was a big surprise. And that's the one, if you've seen, with Jennifer Lawrence. But it was a big surprise. There was going to be a cameo by Mr. De Niro. He was going to play like a mob boss kind of a character. And very few people knew that he was going to be on set that day. But Christian Bale was one of them. And I don't know who else he was supposed to be working with. But the story goes that De Niro got there and he went into hair and makeup, and then he came out onto set, and a lot of people were understandably shocked and, wow, this is amazing, my favorite act, whatever. So De Niro comes on set and he shakes a few hands. He meets the people he was already familiar with. How are you doing? Don't, as you always say, call me Bobby, call me Bobby. Hence why I call him Bobby D, because he's not usually known as Robert except professionally. He likes people to call him Bobby. That's going back to the 70s. So he sees an actor on set sitting in one of the chairs that would normally be reserved for the principal players in a particular scene. He sees this chubby looking guy with a ridiculous mullet and a sloppy beard and sunglasses, and he doesn't know who he is. But he also doesn't want to appear stupid. So De Niro kind of looks around, doesn't ask any questions, but he slowly approaches the actor that is in this chair and kind of squints his eyes, and he sticks out a paw and he says, "Hey, I'm Bobby. I don't know that we have met." It's Christian Bale, under makeup, not prosthetics, just hair and makeup. And Bale, with that great British accent of his, he goes, "Bobby, it's me, Christian." Well, Mr. De Niro was stunned, because once he identified himself, okay, now I can kind of see it. But he walked right up to him and didn't realize, even though he knew Christian Bale was in the movie, it just didn't land. That is how deep Christian Bale can get. That is what he can do with his face and his comportment, his body language. There are some things you can teach and some things you can't. And that ability to inhabit an entirely different persona, I don't know that you can actually learn how to do that in an acting class. So as far as his kind of most famous films, his best performances, I believe that his turn in Spielberg's Empire of the Sun, where I believe he was 12 when that movie was shot, I will stand on business. That is the single finest performance ever given by a child actor in a Hollywood production. He is in virtually every scene. You can't do it any better. And there was one thing on there was a documentary, I forgot the name of it. I think it was called China Odyssey. It came with the DVD, where he actually blew a very expensive take. It was when there were explosions, the scene, mild spoiler, toward the end of the movie, where the American planes are starting to encroach upon Japanese, quote unquote, territory. And he missed his mark, and it cost the production at $250,000, $500,000. But we don't know that as the audience. That's just a story that Spielberg told, kind of with a chuckle in later years. But he is incredible in that film. And that's the movie to look at, number one, if you want to see, well, how did he become a big star in the first place? Almost everybody has a movie that is responsible for kickstarting a big career. That was it for Christian Bale. He outdid, Spielberg probably saw hundreds of other child actors. And if you want to fuck somebody up who just knows him as Batman, or maybe the more recent films like Ford versus Ferrari, have them watch Empire of the Sun, followed immediately by American Psycho. Or do it in reverse. That is a mind fuck. That is something you say, holy crap. I can see it's the same guy, but I can't believe it's the same guy. American Psycho is a really good adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's novel. I guess it's supposed to take place in the same universe as Less Than Zero. I'm not quite sure of the mechanics on that, or like who knows who, whether Patrick Bateman, is there a kind of expanded universe in Ellis's novels I'm not familiar with. But I actually think, my father read the book. He read the book in the 80s. He thought the movie was better than the book because the movie makes it more of a, what the hell is going on here? But the thing with Hollywood is there are moments, there are times where certain people on the A-list, if they don't have first crack, they are big enough, quote unquote, that's what she said, but they are big enough where they can swoop in the 11th hour and take a role from somebody who is signed, sealed, and delivered. Sorry, Stevie. Signed, sealed, and delivered, ready to go. So Lionsgate had Christian Bale and $5 million, I think that he was guaranteed $5 million, to star as Patrick Bateman in Mary Harron's adaptation of the novel American Psycho. They were very close to filming. But right around this time, Leonardo DiCaprio, fresh off of Titanic, was circling multiple projects, including, incredibly, Spike Lee's Summer of Sam. I am so happy that DiCaprio did not end up taking that role, because the screenplay, which probably read really well, Spike Lee's script, movie is disastrous. Worst film Spike ever made. And I love Spike Lee as a filmmaker, but that film was not good. It was not good. Thank goodness he did not take that role. He ended up doing The Beach, but there was a stretch of a couple of weeks where DiCaprio's management team got wind of American Psycho. And they said, we might want Leo for this. Can you hold off? Can you give us a couple of weeks? Well, because it was DiCaprio, they did give him a couple of weeks. There's a version of The Matrix in which Leonardo DiCaprio's team says, this is perfect for you. Oh my God, this is going to be amazing. What a great follow-up to, I need you to swim, Rose, swim! And Christian Bale gets bounced, and Leonardo DiCaprio plays Patrick Bateman. What are you in, Bateman? Murders and executions. Oh, mergers and acquisitions. Great. Murders and executions. Alas, Leonardo DiCaprio's team read that and said, we don't think that he needs to be playing this kind of role at this point in his career. So rather than jettisoning Christian Bale, paying him $5 million and bringing on Leo for 12 to 15 plus a cut, they don't do that. They just make the movie. And Bale absolutely crushes it. And the thing is, we know he has incredible genetics. You're not supposed to look like Christian Bale. And with the body part, the length, everything is perfect. He has an incredible physique in that film. Let me put it to you this way. He's drug-free. Maybe he was taking some fat burners. But that is what a normal, fantastic physique, that's an achievable, fantastic physique. You know, there are levels here. When he made Reign of Fire with Matthew McConaughey, there's a scene where the two guys are shirtless and they're squaring off. It is not, and no offense, it is not Sylvester Stallone and Dolph Lundgren. I don't need to go any further than that. You know what I mean. It is two guys who have phenomenal physiques, but phenomenal physiques within normal parameters. There is a difference between a 180-pound phenomenal physique for a guy 6'1" and 240 for a guy 6'1". It's not the same thing. But Bale in American Psycho was so dialed in. He was so dialed in, it made sense for the character. It was not a vanity project. And we know that Bale is not vain, because being willing to go up and down in weight as many times as he has, going way up for Vice, going way down for The Machinist, or it's fucking scary. He even gets thinner than, relatively speaking, than Dennis Quaid did in Wyatt Earp. And up to that point, that was really frightening. It looked like Quaid needed to go to a hospital. Bale looked like he was ready for the morgue. But he's not somebody who stresses about it. He appears to be somebody who would give a shit, but I don't really think he does. As uncomfortable as he may have been, looking sloppy all through filming of American Hustle and Vice, never said a word. And that's where you get into a different mindset, that Bale is an actor first, as De Niro is an actor first. It's not that they weren't interested in fitness. You look at the condition that De Niro got in, for example, for Cape Fear. He looks pretty diesel. And you look at how trim and lean he is in Raging Bull. When it was time to put on the 70 pounds to play the older LaMotta, De Niro did it, didn't say anything, didn't complain about it, didn't beg Scorsese, can you finish up so I can lose the weight? Nothing. And then you look at, for example, Sylvester Stallone. The one time he did it, he's talked about it. You can find interviews, print, and on YouTube. He was so uncomfortable putting on, we're talking 40 pounds. He didn't put on what De Niro did for Raging Bull, or not even close to what Bale did for Vice. And Stallone could not handle it. He was so miserable. He couldn't stand the fact that he was going out in public looking like he had gone off the wagon. He was preoccupied with how he looked. And Christian Bale, I'm sure, takes pride in his appearance, but when it's time to go to work, he's going to work, and let's just make a fucking movie. Let's fucking go. That seems to be his attitude. He's okay making small adjustments to his diet for a role, and you look at some of the turnarounds he's made. This is one that I don't understand how it happened. You look at Christian Bale, for example, as I said, in Reign of Fire. He's not big, but he has a great physique. He's like 2%, 3%, 4% body fat. He's really, really lean. And it makes sense because they're all starving there. He then makes The Machinist, not that long after Reign of Fire, where he loses all this weight. He had to turn around in a matter of, I don't think it was more than 90 days to start shooting Batman Begins, which, if you ask me, I think is the best of the Nolan trilogy. I know that most people will disagree with me, but I have seen all three. I love Batman Begins. In fact, if I'm asked to name my 3 favorite films with Christian Bale, that's the one that I'm going to choose of the Nolan trilogy. Most people will take The Dark Knight. I love Heath Ledger, but I don't know, for a Batman origin type of story or a first iteration of a dark but still super entertaining, man, Scarecrow, I think it's great. And I really like all of the supporting performances. Katie Holmes and Tom Wilkinson, Cillian Murphy, all great. But Bale is just fearless. He's just fearless. And he's just, even with the 4 Oscar nominations, there are other movies you could say, where the fuck was his nomination? Why wasn't he nominated for Ford versus Ferrari? That's a kind of an undersold, incredible movie. Matt Damon is Carroll Shelby. I guess it's supposed to be his film. I barely remember Matt Damon in that movie. That is how dominant, how much of a kind of an alpha performance that Bale gives in that film. Another turnaround where I was saying, he had about 3 months to transform from like a 115-pound bone rack in The Machinist to very fit and muscular Bruce Wayne. And then you go ahead to the movie Vice, the Dick Cheney, where he plays Dick Cheney in that film, and he's horrendous. He's so sloppy. He looks horrible. But that was kind of the point. And then he flips it right around. And if you look at his character of Ken Miles in Ford versus Ferrari, he looks like he could pull up his shirt and he's going to have a row of abs. It's incredible that he was able to do that. And it doesn't seem that because sometimes when you have that kind of huge disparity in weight, not everybody is able to get back to where they were. In the case of Sylvester Stallone with Copland, he did something you're not supposed to do because he was so uncomfortable. He went back as soon as they finished filming. Now, it's understood in the movie business that you don't, if you put on weight, if you take off weight, you don't immediately go in the other direction until you're somewhat confident that you're not going to be needed for reshoots. This isn't something that I would normally have thought about. But in the case of Copland, Stallone, at the end of filming, when his scenes were done, he reversed course, and within 4 or 5 weeks, he was back to where he had been before he started the process of, as he put it, I'm eating flapjacks every day, I'm eating banana splits and fried mashed potatoes. It's amazing. He loved the eating process. It was everything else that he couldn't tolerate. So in that case, when it was time for reshoots, bro, he's back down to 175. Good luck. You're going to need to use prosthetics or camera angles or something because he didn't keep the condition. He couldn't stand being so chubby. He could not live with himself. Christian Bale can. And we've seen De Niro with all the times for Al Capone in The Untouchables. He looks like crap. He's a little heavier. In Angel Heart, he's kind of probably about 15, 20 pounds above what you would call his fighting weight. Everyone has a different process, and there are different levels of vanity, and you still have to live in your own skin. If somebody told me, this is ridiculous, I'm not an actor, but if somebody just in general said, would you put on 50 pounds in 2 months, completely stop working out, put on 50 pounds, we'll give you $100,000. We'll give you $1 million. I don't know that I would do it. So Christian Bale being able to absorb all of these different transformations. Rescue Dawn, another movie where he lost a lot of weight that he had presumably gained for Batman Begins, and The New World, the Terrence Malick film, which it's okay. For Malick, it's not one of his best. He got thin again because he plays a prisoner of war. That was based on a German film called, I think, Little Dieter Needs to Fly. I think that's what it was called. But there are just so many wonderful performances in so many different kinds of films, whether semi-comic, such as American Hustle, whether heart-rending, such as The Fighter, where he won his Oscar and well-deserved. Even the film that was on Netflix a couple of years ago that it briefly made a splash. I think it was number one on the service for a couple of weeks. The Pale Blue Eye, where he had a beard and he, very serious and focused and intense. And Harry Melling, who had played, I forgot the name of the character that he played in Harry Potter, but a very interesting actor. That movie was not 100% successful, but it's another distinctive Bale performance. But you think about it, you look a certain way, even under makeup and even in some cases prosthetics. How different can you sound? You might do a different accent. You may speak, as Christian Bale can do, a Cockney kind of a British accent. He can do a more conventional British accent, and we know he could do a really good New York accent, American accent, but it's still you. To be able to disappear into the character to where we almost forget that we're watching a certain actor, that's the best of film acting. And I feel like Bale has reached that almost transcendent level in more performances per capita than virtually any other actor. He's just an enormous talent and very intense. And a Terminator Salvation sucks. I'm sorry. It's not good. I wish they had just stopped the Terminator series after the first two, but unfortunately with IP, you just keep going to the well, and Terminator Genesis was just okay. Terminator Dark Fate is just okay. Terminator Rise of the Machines, it's just not good. It is very, very unfortunate. That's the way it goes, but that's Hollywood, trying to balance art and commerce. And the fact that studios are more likely to take risks on IP and on big budget spectacle type movies as opposed to the smaller independent style films such as The Machinist, which is a really good thriller. I should point out, it's not just the fact that Christian Bale transformed so much, and as he put it, he was eating a couple of cans of tuna packed in water and maybe an apple. That was the bulk of his diet, no pun intended, using the word bulk. And he never complained. He just never, this is just something that he decided he was going to do. And there is something humanizing about the idea of an individual, in this case, such as Christian Bale. We know that movie stars live entirely different lives than regular folk. It's not a criticism, it's just a reality. But when you know that somebody is showing discipline, showing a will of iron, it doesn't matter how much money you have. When you're starving, you're starving. You're hungry, you're hungry. And I'm reminded, speaking of guys with incredible physiques, although maybe not, in the same ballpark as a McConaughey or a Bale, but Chris Hemsworth, while he was getting ready to shoot Thor: Love and Thunder, took part in a Disney Channel docuseries, really, really solid, called Limitless. And one of the episodes, he goes through a series of trials, physical, psychological trials, in the hopes of life extension. That's the idea. So again, Chris Hemsworth is a genetic, if Christian Bale is a genetic mega superior, Hemsworth is a genetic mega superior. You are not supposed to, nobody should look like that guy. It's ridiculous. So Christian Bale has this, we know, great physique and all that, but Chris Hemsworth is another level. He looks like a superhero. But in one of the episodes, he fasts. He fasts almost as intensely as Christian Bale, joking about, I was, having a can of tuna and an apple, and that was my food for the day during The Machinist when I was trying to get down in weight. In the TV show, the series Limitless, Chris Hemsworth goes on a 48-hour fast. And his two brothers are there, including Liam. I forgot the name of the other brother. And they fuck with him by eating pizza right in front of him. Now, we can be jealous of Chris Hemsworth. We can be jealous of his looks. We could be jealous of his money. We could be jealous of his fame. But when he's on hour 36 of a fast and his brother Liam is dangling a slice of pizza in front of him, daring him to break the fast, and he's not going to do it, that humanizes him. And Christian Bale, knowing the suffering that he has gone through for his art, his choice, nobody's making him do it, just as nobody forced Chris Hemsworth to go through that absurd fast, and everyone on set is fucking with him to see if he's going to stick to it. He does. Spoiler alert. But knowing the suffering for the art, well, I don't know. There is something grounding about that. There is something that is very easy to respect. And then there are the movies where you're allowed to just have fun. Bale hasn't made that many of those movies. You have to almost go back to the early 90s when he did the musical Newsies, which was not entirely successful. I hope for his health that Christian Bale does not do any more bonkers transformations. I have a feeling that he's going to do it again, but let's just have it not be as extreme as what it was for Vice. I don't remember him talking about exactly how he did that. There are some sort of apocryphal stories with regards to this thing. I remember the story of when De Niro as Jake LaMotta. And there are different ways to do this. What made the Raging Bull transformation for De Niro very difficult, or more difficult, I should say, is because Jake LaMotta goes, De Niro's most of the movie where he's a guy he's a fighter. So he's in fighting trim. There are essentially two Jake LaMottas, or three almost, in that movie. There is middleweight champion Jake LaMotta. There's Jake LaMotta between fights who's struggling with his weight. He's like maybe 15 or 20 pounds above where he needs to be to fight. And then there's Jake as an old man. So they kind of shot all the scenes first of him in fighting trim, and then De Niro maybe put on a little bit, and they could have done some padding to make it seem like he's struggling between fights. Then he went to Italy. De Niro went to Italy and ate a ton and put on 60 or 70 pounds to look like shit. So that the kind of older LaMotta, they didn't really need to do that much makeup work. Just the fact that he had a gut, they gave him like a putty nose type of a thing. He looked a lot older. But Christian Bale, a great actor, a generational talent, and we can be pretty sure that he has not had his last Oscar nomination. I didn't like his performance. I forgot to mention the connection with him and Hemsworth is the fact that Thor: Love and Thunder, he plays Gore the God Butcher. I didn't think that he did anything with the performance. The character just wasn't interesting. I guess Bale figured, you know what? I did DC. Let me do an MCU villain. We'll see how it works out. I thought the movie was super entertaining. I mean, Russell Crowe was hysterical as Zeus, the way he's jumping around and throwing bolts. That stuff was great. The movie was just okay. But I do hope for at least a few more Oscar nominations for Christian Bale before all is said and done. And I hope he has a happy 51st birthday. And I don't know what he's working on. Oh, wait a minute. I think he's working on, now that I'm running it through the mental meat grinder, if I'm not mistaken, he's working on a Bride of Frankenstein reboot. And I don't know the filmmaker, but I feel like he's working on that as we speak. So who knows? Hollywood has had a bit of a checkered history with any kind of Frankenstein movies since James Whale in 1931 and 1935, The Bride of Frankenstein. It's still up there, one of the great movies of all time. But here's to Christian Bale. Happy 51st birthday to really a living legend and somebody who's probably not far from beginning to get Lifetime Achievement Awards. Probably by his mid-50s, he's going to be, he's kind of on the back nine now, but I think that he's got a lot more in the tank, and I do appreciate the suffering for the art and his full commitment to every role. The guy never takes a movie off. This has been episode 436 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Thursday morning here with me in New York. And if you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then,